Now, when you had the opportunity, playing against some of those schools, maybe the schools that might have said that you were too small, or you had talked about, going to SC and seeing the coaches and say, hey, we're not going to recruit him. Did you have any extra added motivation when you started playing, like UCLA, your first time, like down in the Rose Bowl? Like, we always talk about it, and I know I love playing the Rose Bowl. I love going to that. Number one, my family was there and stuff, but I grew up watching UCLA football. I never got to play in the Coliseum, unfortunately. But what was it like, say, the first time you went to play UCLA?
Yeah, so, we actually played SC first. So that was week 4. So we ended up playing Reno and then played SC the very next week. So it was like my second game ever starting, and we're playing SC. And just, my whole thing about playing SC UCLA was just, like I always said, prove it. I got to prove something to them. I'm trying to prove to them that they made a mistake. Not anything like being negative about it, but I was just like, look, I know that I'm better than the guys you recruited. And, I know I'm better than the guy you recruited at UCLA. Even though Washington State was number 1 on my list, like that was still my mentality. I was like, you didn't want me to come in and play right away. And they actually Washington State ended up having a guy that they recruited who started as a freshman. So so
now you're like, I gotta play better than that guy.
I know I'm better than everybody else. I'm just gonna prove you how much better than him I am. So now that was my whole thing. And then being able to play SC UCLA, both teams are right here in our backyard. Play them was always like added motivation. Just not only were SC always just like the cream of the crop in terms of they always had the best recruits. They always had 5-star guys. It was always that's what I always tell people about SC is like. They was like, oh, SC is struggling. How they have all this talent and they're not doing anything with it. And I always go, SC's always had all this talent. This isn't new. They've always underachieved. This has been their MO. Like I was like, except for Robinson and Carroll, they've always underachieved. So it's like just trying to stick it to the most I can. And I remember we played SC first, and like I said about our guy Ife Olete, he was a starting strong safety for SC at the time. So, this dude is huge, trying to have to block him. And we go out there and I make a couple catches. We ended up, winning the game on a late field goal. And then a couple weeks later, we go down and play UCLA at the Rose Bowl. And, and it's like you said, I go down, make make a catch, I throw a pass, catch a touchdown. I have all these other plays. It's like going out there, being able to prove and like, yeah, I knew all along that I deserved to, and I was good enough to be on the field with all these guys at the same time. And it's just like now I just get to rub it in your face every single year.
So you ended up. We had, you have a phenomenal college career in terms of setting records, in terms of just being the go-to guy. I think, and I've watched you play forever because of our high school experience and stuff, but I can't remember seeing you really drop a catchable ball. And I think that was one of the things that as I'm going into this whole situation, trying to talk to Keenan Howry, like you just had that innate ability to catch a football. I remember I'm backtracking a little bit, but I remember everybody piling out of the stadium at Cerritos College during the California versus Texas All-Star game in high school. And everybody's leaving, man. And there's you got Chris Lewis from Long Beach Poly who's going to Stanford. You got Kyle Bowler who's going to Cal from Hart. You got you out there. You got Kareem Kelly who went to SC. You got talking about the cream of the crop of high school football. And everybody's leaving because Texas is up. And their quarterback ends up taking the snap, running backwards, run the clock out, and ends up taking a knee with 2 seconds left or whatever. And they go out there and they get on the field. And I remember sitting there with my teammates that are there watching my mom. And I'm like, watch Keenan. And for those of you who weren't there, it was basically just a Hail Mary into the end zone. But in my head, I remember what it looked like was this whole group of people jump up in the front of the end zone. And if I remember correctly, you were in the back of the end zone. And you just ran up and jumped between all of them and caught the ball and came down with it. And it was like, game. And I remember just like I was freaking out. Everybody was screaming and stuff. But that was always your MO. That was always – I never knew another guy who caught the ball like you did. When you went out throughout your career and then you go into the NFL and you go around, you see people, did you ever meet up with any of these coaches in the future that came back and said, oh, man, I really kicked myself for not recruiting you, or I really, any of those type of the stories ever pop up?
Yeah, man. So more recently, probably, so I'll do it chronologically. Like, so I saw when I got to NFL and we played against Cincinnati, I got to run into Hugh Jackson, who, like I said earlier, was the O coordinator at USC at the time when I was in high school, and now he's coaching on the Cincinnati staff. So I'm bumping him at pre-workout. I'm like, hey, coach. He's like, oh, Keenan, what's going on? He's like, oh, man, we kind of dropped the ball recruiting you, man. We should have gave you a chance and the other. And I'm like, hey, man, it's all worked out. It's all good. Like, I didn't even really want to go to SC anyway, so it was no hard feelings. And then more recently, I about 4 or 5 years ago, a receiver coach of mine was actually coaching at the University of Michigan. And at the time, I was thinking about possibly going into college coaching. So he was trying to get me to come out there, meet people, and kind of rub elbows, see if I can get on there and come out there. And actually, Al Borges was the offensive coordinator of Michigan, but he was also the offensive coordinator at UCLA when we were in high school and college. And then so we got to talking, and I was like, yeah, I went to. He was like, oh, he's like, no, I know who you are. I remember you very well. He's like, yeah, I used to get on Coach Toledo, who's the head coach you say at the time, and Coach Carragher, who was a receiver coach. He's like, yeah, I used to get on them all the time. We play you guys those 4 years, and every time you'd score a touchdown or you ran that punt return back against us in 2002, I just would be on the phones like, yep, he's not fast enough for us though, not big enough. All right, and that was a good job by you guys. All right.
Fixie punting, Howry waiting. Third punt for Fixie. The two previous punts, both 45 yards. Another good one. 22-yard line for Howry. Gets a little crack. Look out. Oh, he's got one man. Cuts back into traffic, though, and it got a little different. And there he goes. It's in the end zone. No flags behind him. It's touchdown, Oregon. 79 yards for Keenan Howry.
It's always cool being able to hear those stories.
I'm talking selfishly. Did that give you a little bit of a I got like, oh, okay, they did that kind of justify some of the things that you had put out in front of you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I held all that on my shoulders anyway. I'm not to prove I'm out to prove I'm the better receiver. I'm not to prove here that I'm the best. So it's a little sense of validation to hear it from somebody else, and especially from somebody who it was at an institution where they didn't want you, they didn't recruit you, they didn't want you, and they kind of know that they kind of dropped the ball on it. It does feel good, it does feel good. And that's the one thing that I think the mindset you have to have as a recruit is that college coaches aren't perfect. I think back then it was probably easier to whiff on a guy back then because you had so many limited resources. Mm-hmm. It happened. Guys slipped through the cracks. You had a guy who, ends up going to San Jose State because, he went to a high school that ran the double wing and you never got to see how fast he was or how good he was. So guys slip through the cracks all the time. I think nowadays you don't have as many. I think now the things happen where kids slip through the cracks because all they're using is like, oh, well, he was at 7-on-7, or, oh, I'm just going off of the recruiting ranking. And I think sometimes, too much information kind of can be a hindrance for a lot of the coaches. And like I said, they're not perfect. It's not recruiting isn't as an imperfect science. No, it's hard to project somebody from being a high school senior into what they're going to be in college. And I've always told people, everybody's like, oh, you played in the NFL. Is that one of the hardest transitions you ever had to make? And I go, no, the hardest transition is going from high school to college. Like there's you're talking about guys who may have a couple guys that run 4.5. And you're going to college where like everybody runs 4.5. Your linebackers run 4.5. Your safeties run 4.5.
Yeah.
Everybody's fast. And it's like you go that to college, and it's like college to NFL, and it's like, yeah, you got guys that are like faster and stronger. But the speed similarity is it's
more of a level playing field.
Yeah. So like I said, it's not perfect. you know, there's countless stories about, you know, like, you know, with Aaron Rodgers about how he, you know, the chip on his shoulder about how, you know, all the schools passed on him the first time so he had to go to Butte Junior College. And even then he came back and still, I think Cal was one of the only few offers that he got. And, you know, same thing, you know, it's just, you know, some of those things that you just have to find different ways to motivate yourself. And, you know, that was one of mine, is just going out there to prove it.